We continue now at the top of Daf Yomi Gemara Meseches Yoma. This is Yoma Daf 25a. The Gemara in the previous summer just brought a Mishnah in Meseches Talmud to try to prove that when they did the lottery for the Kohanim for who's going to do the Avoda, the Kohanim were wearing Bigdei Chol. The Gemara now makes a diak from that Mishnah. My lav, doesn't the Mishnah mean ba'osan shezachu lepayis? Meaning those people who won the lottery, they have to put on the clothing. That would imply that they're wearing Bigdei Chol, and now that they won the lottery to do the Avoda, they're putting on Bigdei Kodesh. So the Gemara says, Amar Rav Huna bar Yehuda, Amar Rav Sheshes. Rav Huna bar Yehuda says in the name of Rav Sheshes, lo, no, that's not what the Mishnah means. Biosan shelo zachu lepayis. What the Mishnah means actually is the exact opposite. They're wearing Bigdei Kodesh, and those who do not win the lottery, they're the ones that have to take off the Bigdei Kodesh, and those who did win will keep on the clothing. They're going to serve in the Bigdei Kodesh. And the Gemara says, Hachinam mistabra, it's logical like this as well, meaning it's logical to say that they're already wearing Bigdei Kodesh. The Isal Kadaitach Ba'osan Shezachu Lepayis, because if you think the Mishnah means to say that those who win the lottery, they should put on the Bigdei Kodesh, so what exactly does the Mishnah mean? The Mishnah says, Lo hayu manichan alein elo michnasayim bilvad. It says they would take off the clothing and only leave on their michnasayim. Now, if you're going to say that they're wearing Bigdei Chol, so then they're taking off the Bigdei Chol, keeping on michnasayim, keeping on trousers that are Bigdei Chol, and then they're starting to put on Bigdei Kodesh, that wouldn't make sense. V'atanya, but we learned in a Braisa, Minayin shelo yedavar kodem lemichnasayim. How do we know that nothing should be put on before the michnasayim? Meaning the michnasayim are the first Bigdei Kodesh that are put on. Talmud lomer michnasei bad yu al bisaro. It says the michnasei bad are on his flesh, meaning they're the first things that you wear. So it would be done in the exact opposite fashion. On the contrary, if they're putting on Bigdei Kodesh, the first Bigdei Kodesh they should put on is the michnasayim. So what they're probably doing is they're already wearing Bigdei Kodesh, and what the meaning is that those who are taking off the clothing take off everything except the michnasayim. And the Gemara says, V'idach, the other opinion who holds that they're wearing Bigdei Chol and they're putting on the Bigdei Kodesh, halokash, it's not difficult, hachi katani. Here's what the Mishnah means when it talks about the michnasayim. It means as follows: Ad she'odon alein Bigdei Chol, while they're still wearing Bigdei Chol, malbishin osan michnasei Kodesh, that's when they put on the michnasayim of Kodesh, meaning they should put on the michnasayim of Kodesh while they're still wearing some clothing, v'hayu mafshitin osan Bigdei Chol, and then they would take off the Bigdei Chol, v'lo manichan ela michnasayim bilvad. And so then at one point in time, they'd only be wearing the michnasayim because they put on the michnasayim that are Kodesh while they still had on Bigdei Chol. They took off the rest of the Bigdei Chol, and then they put on the Bigdei Kodesh. Rashi over here explains, if you think that it means that the ones who win the lottery are putting on the Bigdei Kodesh, they're taking off Bigdei Chol, Bigdei Kodesh, and they're putting on Bigdei Kodesh. And then the Mishnah was saying that they just leave on the pants that are Chol. Alma malbishin osan Bigdei Kodesh al michnasei Chol. That would mean that the Bigdei Kodesh are being placed while they're still wearing michnasayim of Chol. V'achar kach poshin michnasei Chol, and then they take off the michnasayim, the pants that are Chol. V'lovshin lemichnasei Kodesh, and then they put on the michnasei Kodesh. V'atanya. But we learned in a Braisa again, the michnasei Kodesh have to go on first, so that wouldn't make any sense. So then the Gemara says, no, that opinion can say, Malbishan osan michnasei Kodesh, kedei shelo yamdu arumim. They put on the michnasei Kodesh first, so they shouldn't stand naked when they take off the rest of the clothing, kishiv shitam, when they take off the rest of the clothing, and then they take off the rest of the clothing and put on the other Bigdei Kodesh. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rav Sheshes says, Mino amin Allah, how can I prove to you that when they did the lottery, they were actually wearing the Bigdei Kodesh already? The Tanya, as we learned in a Braisa, Lishkas HaGozis kamin besilki gadol haisa. The Lishkas HaGozis was like a large basilica. Payis b'mizracha, they did the lottery in the east. V'zokin Yoshev b'ma'arava, there was an elder that sat in the west in case there was anything to adjudicate. V'akohanim mukafin v'yomdin kamin b'chulior. The Kohanim, they were in a circle like in the shape of a bracelet. V'hamemuna ba, the person who was in charge, he came. V'notel mitznefes me'rosha shalechon mehen, he took the mitznefes, the hat, off of one of them. V'yodin, and that's how they knew shemimenu payis maschil, that the lottery would begin from him. Again, that's where the counting of the numbers would begin. So the Gemara now says, V'isal kadaituch bebigdei chol. Now, if you think the Kohanim are wearing Bigdei Chol in this Braisa, mitznefes bebigdei chol mi'iko, is there such a thing as a mitznefes of Bigdei Chol, of a hat of Bigdei Chol? Obviously, the mitznefes that's being taken off the head of the Kohen is talking about a mitznefes that's Bigdei Kodesh. So the Gemara says not necessarily. Yes, there is such a thing as mitznefes bebigdei chol. Kedetoni Rav Yehuda, like Rav Yehuda taught, v'temer Rav Shmuel bar Yehuda, some say Rav Shmuel bar Yehuda taught, Kohen sha'astalo imo ksones. A Kohen, his mother made him a personal ksones. Ovid ba avodas yachid. He could do an avoda that has to do with an individual. He can't do an avodas tzibor. And the same thing would be true by a mitznefes. It's possible that a person can have a mitznefes in the same fashion. That's really a mitznefes that's bigdei chol. And Rashi over here says, Kidiktani Rav Shmuel Bar Yehuda, it's like Rav Shmuel Bar Yehuda taught, L'kamon bePerak Gimel, this is later on in Perak Gimel, Shahayu imosein shel Kohanim, Osos livneim mishelohem kimin bigdei kahuna. The mothers of the Kohanim would make begodim that looked like the bigdei kahuna. Laharos tiferes oshran, to show the wealth and the beauty, v'noi malachtan, how well they make it, v'kamahin mahadros mitzvahs, how much they beautify mitzvahs, the Katani Kohen shasta lo imo ksones, lovsha v'ovid bo avodas yachid. That's what it says, that a Kohen who wears such a ksonis that his mother made for him, he can wear it and he can do avodas yachid, not avodas tzibur. And the Gemara continues, Amar Abaya says, Shma mina, you see from this brisa, Lishkas Hagazis chetzia b'kodesh v'chetzia b'chol. You see that when it came to the Lishkas Hagazis, half of it was in the kodesh of the Beis HaMikdash, and half of it was in the chol. Ushma mina, we see further, Shnei Psachim Hayula, there were two entrances to this Lishkas Hagazis, Echad Pasuach b'kodesh v'echad Pasuach b'chol. One entrance was in the kodesh, and one was in the chol, and now Abaya explains why we see these facts. Because if you think the entire thing is bakodesh, Zaken Yoshe b'ma'arav, is it possible that an elder can sit down in the west side of the Lishkas Hagazis? V'amar mar, but didn't the master say, Ein yeshiva ba'azara elu l'malchei Beis David bilvad? No one's allowed to sit in the Azara except for the Malchei Beis David, except for the kings of Beis David. And yet the Zaken over here is sitting in the west side. Must be the west side is not kodesh. It must be its chol. That's why he's allowed to sit. And if you think that the entire thing is chol, pious b'mizracha, could you really have the lottery on the east side? Can you really have the pious in an area that's chol? That's not true. It has to be in the house of God, like we said before, that you create this commotion when you do these pious, so it has to be kodesh. V'lek, if it's chol, it's not kodesh. You see that half of it is in the kodesh and half of it is in the chol. And finally, if you think there's only one door, now if that door was open from the Kodesh side, so Zaken Yoshe b'ma'arava, still could the elder sit on the west side? But we learned in the Mishnah, if you have a chamber that's built in the whole area, it doesn't matter, it goes by the door. If the doorway is Kodesh, then it's considered Kodesh, so the whole thing would be Kodesh. And the other way also, if you say the entrance, the doorways at the chol, pious b'mizracha, how could you have the pious on the east side? We learned in the Mishnah, if it's built in the kodesh, but again, the opening, the entrance is by the chol, tochan chol, the entire thing is chol. We need to figure out how it could be 50% chol and 50% kodesh. Elalav shmamina, rather don't we see shnei psachim hayula, there were actually two doorways, echad pasuach b'kodesh, v'echad pasuach l'chol, one entered from the kodesh, one door entered from the chol, and that's why it was 50% kodesh and 50% chol. And the Gemara continues with the Mishnah, hapayis hasheni, the second lottery, mishochit, who shechts the animal, mizorek, who sprinkles the blood, mimedashin, mizbeach hapnimi, who's the one who cleans out the inner mizbeach from the ashes, umimedashin es hamenorah, who cleans the ashes from the menorah, umimale ivarim lakevish, who's the one that brings the limbs to the ramp, harosh, the rosh refers to the head of the animal, the haregel, that refers to the right leg of the animal, ushtei hayadayim, the two forelegs, ha'ukatz, the tail, v'haregel, this is the left leg, v'hachazav, v'hagera, the chest, and also the throat area of the animal, ushtei hadafanos, the two sides, the two flanks of the animal, v'hakerbayim, the innards, v'hasolas, and the fine flour, v'hachavitin, and the cakes, v'hayayin, and the wine. In total, shlosha asar kohanim zachubo. There were 13 kohanim who merited to partake who merited to win the lottery, the pious. Amar Ben Azai lefnei Rabbi Akiva. Ben Azai said in front of Rabbi Akiva, Mishum Rabbi Yoshua, in the name of Rabbi Yoshua, Derech Hilucho Hayakarev. They actually brought the carbon, when it came to the carbon tamid, they brought it the same way the animal walks, not in the order of the limbs that are identified in the Mishnah. Now Rashi over here says, Mishochet es hatamid, who's the one that gets to shech the carbon tamid? As we said, we're talking about the carbon tamid here. Harosh v'haregel, again, the regel here is shel yamin. That's the right regel b'kohen echad. One kohen does both the rosh and the regel. Ushnei hayadayim bekohen sheni. The second kohen does the two forelegs. Ha'ukatz is the tail. Hu hazonav, that's the tail. V'haregel shel smol plus the left leg. Bekohen shlishi, that's a third kohen. Hachazah, that refers to the chest. Hu hashuman haroes akarka, the part of the animal that sees the earth. V'chotchen oso mikan below rosh atzilos. You cut it from this side and from this side, not at the edges of the ribs. V'hagera hu hatzaver, that refers to the neck, the throat. Uvo mechubar hakone v'hakaved v'halei v'hachazu v'hagera b'kohen revi. That includes all the areas that are attached to that area of the throat. That's the fourth kohen. Ushnei hadafanos b'chamishi, the two flanks are with the fifth kohen. V'akirbayim, the innards b'shishi, that's the sixth kohen. V'hasolas, the fine flour, isarun leminchas nischo shel tamid. This refers to the mincha that goes along with the carbon tamid. V'hachavitim chatzi esrono shel kohen gadol. That refers to the chatzi isaron that the kohen gadol brings. Shekarevim hatzimidin b'chol yom. That's brought with the carbon tamid every day. Shenemar, like it says, machatzisa b'avoker, machatzisa b'erev. You bring half in the morning, you bring half in the evening. It says it's al machavas b'Hashem and teyasa. That's why, since it says machavas, that's why it's called chavitin. Again, for the carbon tamid, they had wine as well. In total, Yud Gimel Kohanim Zochen Bo. There were 13 Kohanim who merited to participate here. But Payis in this Payis, Ha'echad Shlosh Esrei Avodos Kohanim Menuyos Kana. Total, you're going to have 13 Kohanim that are doing various avodos. And then finally, the last opinion was Kederech Hilucho, the way the animal walks B'chayev while it's alive. Haryakarev Hatamid. That's how they offered the carbon tamid of the Gemara Mefarish Law. The Gemara will explain exactly what this means. And the Gemara says, Iboilu, they had the following question. Kishahin mefaisen, when they drew the lots, lavoda achas mefaisen, did they do this for one avoda? Odil malchol avoda v'avoda hein mefaisen, or maybe every single avoda had its own lottery. Rashi over here says, Kagon mishochet, maybe if they did it one time, it would go as follows. They would figure out who does the shchita. Whoever wins that, misha zochel l'shchita shuvein payis l'shar yud beis avodos. Once you figure out who does the shchita, the other 12 avodos, you don't need to do a lottery. Ela kohanim shemukafin liyamino nimshochen acharov kifi seder mishnasenu. You just simply go to the right, the next Kohen gets the next avoda, etc., etc. Sheni lezrika, shlishi ledishan mizbeach hapnimi. The second one gets the zrika, the third one gets the dishan mizbeach hapnimi. Revi lemenorah, the fourth gets the menorah v'chein kulan. That's how it's going to work. Maybe for every single avoda they would do a new lot. They would put out their fingers for a new lottery. Whoever got the second one, the third one, etc., would win. So the Gemara says, Tashma, come in here. Arba paisos hayusham. We said earlier there were 4 lotteries in total. Now, if you think every single avoda gets its own payas, tuva, you're going to have much more than 4. So the Gemara says not necessarily. Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak says, Hachi Kamar, here's what it might mean when it said there were 4 paisos. Arba pa'amim nichnasin lahafis. They gathered together to do lotteries 4 times. Ulachal chada v'chada hayuba tuva paisos. Maybe each time there were multiple paisos. We'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Chof Hey Amud Beis.